I am in the middle, or haven't even started, 31 series that are on my TBR, and that's just not okay. Here is the series tracker that I've got at the moment, and as you can see, lots of them I've only got one book left of the series to read, or I haven't even started. And so this video and this series is going to help me get this series tracker back down to hopefully maybe only even one or two. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new here. My name is Lauren, and this is a little series that I'm doing in order to try and reduce the 31 series that I'm either in the middle of or haven't even started down to what the hopes is 0 or 1 or 2 depending on new releases. And so for today's video, I thought rather than me picking the 3 books myself, I thought why not get a spinner wheel to pick them for me. Now, I'm filming this slightly later on in kind of the plan of things, so I have already read a couple of the books from this video. However, I pre-filmed the spinners. Now, as I use my phone to film, my spinners are on my phone, so I pre-recorded my spinners and they are on my phone, so you're going to see me kind of talk about them in retrospect. So for the first book that we have, here is the spinner. And as you can see, we have the Prelude of Fire, which, if you're not familiar, is a book 2 of the Galleon Quartet series, which is by an indie author called Christine E. Schlues. I'm really sorry if I butchered that last name. She is an indie author who writes YA fantasy, and this actually is an ARC that she sent me back in summer. Now, I know she's had some publishing problems, and so this book is now not being released until next year, however has previously been released. And so I'm late onto the train with my ARC because I should have read this months and months ago, because like I say, it's already been released. But I'm really enjoying, but I'm going to get into that book in this video and hopefully get it done, so you guys have got kind of an ARC review before the book actually comes out. First clip of this vlog is here. Yay. I've pre-filmed quite a few videos for the end of November and December, and so I've been really ahead of schedule. And then filming this clip, I'm now realising that this video goes out in a couple of weeks' time, but actually I'm going home and I don't want to film around people, and so I've got 3 books to get through really quickly. Will it work? I don't know, but we are currently reading Serenade of Kings. If you watched last week's video, you will know I have started this in the middle of reading Sectioned: A Life Interrupted, because I was struggling getting through that book, and so I thought, let's put that one down for now. We'll pick it back up to end off the video for that video. However, I know Serenade of Kings, being a fantasy, it is a YA fantasy, will take me a little while to get through. I am not a fantasy reader. I have read ACOTAR, I have read Powerless and Reckless by Lauren Roberts, and I have read the first book in this series as an ARC. So I spoke to the author who was asking for ARC readers, and I read that one and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars, and that book follows a young girl. It's called Prelude of Fire. It follows a young girl who is going on this adventure across the magic realm to try and save the kingdom, which is currently getting destroyed by the evil king. And it's about her meeting people along the way, creating friendships, and it's such a lovely YA book with, it's not got romance in it, but it does have like those underlying lines, you know, when you're reading the book and you're like, oh, could they, or are they, is it friends, is it like a bit more, what's going on? And some of the characters are interlinked, and then there's shock endings and there's shock twists and turns, and it really got me gripped. And I did really enjoy that story. It took me a while to get into, and I found that this book, so this is actually the prequel to Prelude of Fire. However, if you read this one first, you would spoil the plot twist for Prelude of Fire. So definitely, I know sometimes with prequels, people debate, like, do we read the prequel first or read the actual book first? And I would definitely say, like, read Prelude of Fire. and which is already out and on Kindle Unlimited. So go read that now. And then this book, which is an arc, comes out again in February. So some people might have already seen this because it has already been published, but due to some issues the author had with the publisher, it's now getting re-released in February. So I would definitely say read Prelude of Fire. It's so good. If you like that traveling style, it is a YA fantasy, and I feel I'm not a fantasy reader, so I found it really engaging and I understood the plot line. So if you're a kind of a seasoned fantasy reader, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. However, if you are a bit like me, I'm a romance, slightly thriller mystery girl reading, like love that kind of like vibe, but I sometimes get like that fantasy itch. I see it everywhere. Everyone that I seem to watch loves fantasy. Ellen Catherine, Rachel Catherine, they are right, that is right, isn't it? Sarah Caroli, they all love fantasy. I'm just not a fantasy girly. Now, that's fine. And watching those videos, I just sometimes get that itch and I'm like, oh, that does sound really, really good. And I want to go into a fantasy book. And then I tried to read ACOTAR, and my best friend lent me those, and she told me like, you have to read ACOTAR and it's the best fantasy out there. And it took me about 6 months to get through ACOTAR, the series. And it put me in some big book slumps. And I feel like I'm more romantasy, where the romance takes the kind of front line, or YA fantasy seems to be at the moment where I'm like dipping my toes in. And so yeah, this book is the prequel, and it follows the villain in the first book and his life obviously before what you see happen, so before he's a villain, so you see kind of the nice side of him. I would definitely recommend reading these books relatively back to back, maybe not back to back one after the other. If you're not like a fantasy reader, I know I would really struggle with that. However, I read Prelude of Fire last summer, I think. No, it must have been this summer, because I've only had my bookstagrams in April. So it must have been like early summertime. And for some reason, I forgot the whole plotline. Please tell me why. I rated that book 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I connected with the characters and I did have a great time reading it. Forgot the whole plot. Then the author sent me the arc to this story pretty much straight away, and I was like, yep, that's fine. She was like, I want it read in summer, and I was like, yeah, absolutely, because I'm a teacher. I had 6 weeks off, plus I went on holiday and I left my job, so I was like, yep, absolutely fine, I can do that. So please tell me why it is now December and I haven't done that. I forgot the characters, and so I had to message the author and just say like, look, I'm really sorry, can you send me the summary of how all these characters link? And when she sent it, I was like, oh yes, I clocked it now. So that has changed my reading experience quite a bit now that I actually understand the story. I am 26% of the way through and on chapter 11, and I am actually really enjoying it. Like I say, it takes me a lot longer to read a fantasy book than it would, say, a romance or a thriller, and that's why I've had to start this book first of the video, because I just knew it would take me that little bit longer, and so I wanted to give myself that time. I didn't want to be stressing, going, oh, the video needs to be up this Sunday, I still got 2 other books to get through, because the 2 other books in this video are relatively fast-paced. So I'm going to get back into this now. Obviously, I haven't really told you much about this one because it would spoil the first one, so yeah, see you soon. So I have a final update for you. I'm so happy to say I have finished Serenade of Kings. Now, I'm really sorry for the slightly dodgy angle. If you could see my tripod right now, you'd be joking. It is my cup for books, and then my phone's like balancing on top. So yeah, and different background because I'm back home for Christmas now. So finally finished Serenade of Kings, and I gave it a 4 stars. Now, do I wish I read it for this video? No. Do I wish I gave it more time? Yes. I found that the book itself was written well. and it had a great storyline and plotline. However, I struggled with it, and it's put me in a bit of a little bit of a slump, because I had to force myself to read it in the time frame for this video. I started reading for my 2 reading vlogs in December, like way back in November, and I thought, oh, I've got loads of time, because I knew this book was going to take me a little while to get through, as well as sectioned I was a bit concerned about, which you would have seen in my last video. I was right, and this book has taken me a while, and it did put me in a slight slump, and it's just because it's fantasy. It's not because of the writing or the storyline or anything like that, and I wanted to reflect that in my review or in my star rating. I didn't want to give it, I think if I was rating it purely for my vibes, it would be a 3-star, and that's nothing against the book. It's purely because I don't gel with fantasy. Now, I enjoyed the story, I wanted to keep reading. I did think at times, do I just DNF and like come onto the video and say, look, I've soft DNF'd. It is a book that I would carry on reading outside of the video, but in terms of the video purposes, do I soft DNF and kind of like take a break and give it some time? And I think if I didn't want to go in a reading slump, that's maybe what I should have done. However, I'm not concerned about being in a reading slump. Now, that sounds really odd, but my videos for this month are done, and so I don't do YouTube for a job, I do it for a hobby. And so I was like, as long as the videos that I want to put out are put out, that's fine. I have no more videos that I need to film for this month or do for this month, and so I can afford to take my foot off the pedal and kind of ease to the end of the year. I also hit my Goodreads goal and a few weeks back, so I wasn't too concerned. However, this book has put me in a bit of a slump. What I will say about this book is, go into it with caution if you struggle with any trigger warnings. The trigger warnings that I kind of found within the book, and I saw on Goodreads from someone else's review, is pregnancy complications and some unconsensual actions. Now, pregnancy complications is a slightly bigger theme than the unconsensual actions. However, both do happen, and if either of those are something you struggle with, I would go into this book with caution. It didn't alter the reading experience for me. A, I knew they were coming because I saw it on a Goodreads review, and B, neither of those things trigger me. However, I didn't know anything about that before going into it, and so therefore, if I hadn't have seen that review, I would have been a bit shocked that that was included within the book. But overall, I really enjoyed the story. I liked seeing the prequel, and I don't know where I've read this or heard this, but I think book 3, so the next book, is actually a continuation on from this story. So books 1 is like the story, book 2 and 3 are like the prequels, and then book 4, I'm not sure. However, I could be wrong. Yeah, really enjoyed this book, would recommend. It's currently ARC readers only, and then it gets released in February. So if you want to read this book and it sounds good to you, get on Kindle Unlimited or get on Amazon and read Prelude of Fire book 1, because that was incredible, and that one I really enjoyed. I would say I preferred Prelude of Fire to A Serenade of Kings, but both stories were good and both stories are worth reading. So yeah, 4 stars, great book. Okay, book number 2 of our video. Here's the spinner wheel. Okay, so as you can see, book number 2 is Postscript by Cecilia Ahern. Now, I've read this book, so like I said, some of these clips are going to be spoken about in retrospect, because this book I've read. The other 2 books in the video I've not read yet. So Prelude, I'm halfway through as the moment of filming this, but you would have seen those clips beforehand, and the next book I'm also halfway through. So Postscript is the sequel to P.S. I Love You, and actually this means I finish off a series, which is amazing news. Now, the blurb says, there are 6 words written on a card handed to Holly Kennedy. They're words that are engraved on her heart because P.S. I Love You is how her husband Jerry signed his last letters to her, letters that mark a year she will never forget. Now the mysterious club wants something from her, and if Holly can find the courage to meet them, she'll learn what it really means to live life to the full, because every love story has one last thing to say. This story is 7 years on, I believe, from the first story, so from P.S. I Love You. And like the blurb says, and I don't really want to give you too much more detail because obviously I don't think this book spoils anything from book one. I don't think you can read them out of order, so I don't think you could read this book and then go back and read book one, because I think a lot of this book wouldn't make sense because you've got obviously the friendships and stuff like that. However, what happens in this book doesn't really impact book one as such. So book one's focusing on Holly's grief after losing her husband to cancer and the letters that he sends her, and her kind of navigating life after that, whereas book two is about 7 years later, and this woman comes up to her with a card and it has this club on it that have related to PS I Love You, and so it's kind of Holly navigating that and a different turn of life, and you get to meet lots of new characters. I will say I cried. Well, I didn't cry, like properly cry, because I was out on a walk. So I listened to this book on audiobook because I go back home for Christmas on Saturday. So the week before you guys are seeing this, I'm stressing, trying to get all my books read for the videos, because when I'm back home, A, I don't want to have to worry about filming and editing, and B, I also don't know whether I'm going to have any time on my own and stuff to film, and I'm still not quite there with filming in front of people yet. So I'm trying to get everything done beforehand, so I'm stressed. And so I've listened to this one on audiobook, because I can listen to my audiobooks in like 2 to 3 times speed. I can get through them a lot quicker. So I actually got through Postscript in 2 days. And most of it was just on walks. And so when the sad moments are happening, I'm obviously out in public and not wanting people to see me cry. So I just kind of like, I teared up and I was like, no, I'm out on a walk. No, I can't. However, this book was beautiful. I thought I had seen some negative reviews for this book saying obviously it didn't need a sequel, and to be fair, the first book you could read as a standalone and it would absolutely make sense as a standalone and you don't have to go into this book. However, I just loved this book, and I think I loved book one so much, and I feel like because I connected to the characters and because I loved book one so much, and I read it quite quickly, and actually it was in the last series video, I believe, I just connected to those characters, and that meant like coming into this book, it felt like a warm hug. And it took me a little while just to reconnect the characters, and I feel like that's probably because I was listening to it on audiobook, and I went straight into the audiobook on 3 times speed, and I kind of didn't give myself time to readjust, kind of get into the story before ramping up the speed. And so that took me a little bit of time. However, I connected with these characters, I would say even more than the first book, and it was just so lovely and sad and heartwarming and devastating all at the same time. And just, I gave this book 4 stars in the end. I thought it was a perfect sequel. It ends off really nicely, and I feel like the duology ends in like a really lovely point, and you feel happy for the characters and where Holly's taken her life, and just the impact that has on her and the people around her. And you also see some of the side characters as well, happy and living a happier life, and that's all you can ever ask for when you're reading these sorts of books. And so yes, it made me sad, but it also made me so happy, and I'm so glad I picked this book up quite close to finishing the last book, because I feel like I still felt that connection to the characters, whereas this story especially is, and I think even this book one, they're like contemporary fiction, some elements of romance, so it's a lot of character vibes, like character driven. It's like not a lot of plot, just vibes there. It's a real feel good, heartwarming story. And yeah, so Postscript I would definitely recommend, but like I say, you do have to read PS I Love You first. And so yeah, 4 stars, absolutely amazing book, and I would recommend to anyone. However, maybe check some of the trigger warnings, as the first book follows cancer. This is also a topic in this book as well, and if that's something that you guys are going through or have a loved one close to you going through, it might not be the book for you. But if that's not something that will bother you, then definitely pick it up, because it is definitely worth the read. Finally, to introduce book number 3, here's the spinner wheel. And as you will have seen from that spinner wheel, I have finally got the next book in the Chestnut Spring series. I don't know why I've done this to myself. I started the Chestnut Springs series start of the year some point, and I loved book 1. I then didn't pick up book 2 for a little while, and then I read book 2 and I really enjoyed book 2, and then I've just kind of not picked it up. And I think part of it is because the books are available on Kindle Unlimited. With moving to uni, all the books that are available on Kindle Unlimited that I have physically, I've left at home. So, because I buy Kindle Unlimited and I very much want to utilise that, and also I don't have a lot of space up here and a lot of room, and I didn't want to move everything up. So anything that I could keep at home that wasn't needed, I did. And so this was just one of those books, because I very much was like, I can read it on Kindle Unlimited. I don't need to worry about having the physical copy with me. I enjoy reading on my Kindle anyway, so that's absolutely fine. So Powerless by Elsie Silver. Now, like I said with the previous book, I have actually started this book. I started listening to the audiobook this morning, and I went on a nice long walk because I was really enjoying the audiobook, and so I'm now about halfway through. So this book follows Sloane and Jasper. So Jasper, if you know the books, he's kind of the close adopted brother of the Eton boys, which is the boys that you are following in the Chestnut Springs series, and Sloane is their cousin, so the Eton boys' cousin, and it's very much a friends to lovers, unrequited love tropes vibe, and I'm loving it. Now, everyone's favourite is book number 2. That's kind of the book that you see all the rave and the hype about, is everyone loves book number 2, and I love Luke from book number 2, the little kid. He is adorable, and Willa is great with him, and then Cade's grumpiness around that all is just so lovely, and it is very sexually charged. Now, I think from reading more books this year and from getting through a lot of books, and I don't mind smut. It's not something that I necessarily am turned off by. However, what I have noticed is books like Postscript or contemporary romance books, like the I Heart books as well, I'm tending to like lean more towards than I am the smutty books. So things like the Chestnut Springs series, it's not necessarily the smut in it, it's how Elsie Silver writes the smut. I think that just cringes me a little bit, and whether that's listening to them or reading it, it's the same with the After series. I've read majority of those books now, and every time it's like a sexual scene or a smutty scene, it does cringe me a little bit, whether I'm reading it or listening to it, and I feel like that's probably what's putting me off the Chestnut Spring series. However, I am loving this book. I have found myself gushing at things that Jasper is saying, and I'm just loving this book, and I just want to listen to the rest of it tonight, but that's not possible, and so I will check back in with my final views. I'm not sure if I'll get any clips of me listening to this book, as I tend to just listen to this book when I'm driving to and from work or when I'm out on walks and stuff like that, and so it's not necessarily something that I will sit down and listen to. It's more while I'm doing things. But at the moment, I'm feeling this might be a 5-star prediction, which is crazy to say because I never thought these books would be like a full true 5 stars. I'm not sure what I've rated the first 2 books, and if you want to have a look, my Goodreads is linked down in the description. You can go back and have a look because they are on there. I'm not sure. I might have rated them 5 stars. However, this year, as I've read more and my reading journey's developed, I found my rating systems developed as well, and at the start of the year I was giving a lot more 5 stars out, whereas now I'm being a little more reluctant with them, and so that's definitely something that I'm trying to work on and just like evolve, is my rating system and how I truly feel about a book, and not giving a book a high rating because it's a popular book, or a lot of the times it's with like ARC books, I'm giving them higher ratings because I'm rating it for an arc. And so this book actually truly does feel like a 5 star, and so I would highly recommend to anyone that wants to get into a lovely, like cheesy, just fluffy rom-com, but like I say, just beware that there is smut in it. And yeah, it's about a runaway bride. Who doesn't love that? Who absolutely doesn't love that? Okay, I have finished Powerless. I listened to Powerless as an audiobook, and I really enjoyed it. I found myself at times giggling, laughing, and just loving the story. However, I don't know why it just didn't give me that 5-star feel. I just didn't feel it. I don't know why. The story started off and you're following Jasper and Sloane's story, and I loved it. I loved seeing kind of the childhood best friends to lovers kind of trope, and his protectiveness and him calling her Sonny, and I just loved it, okay? But I don't know what it was. I just didn't get gripped in, and I think that was the trouble. And I think, as you'll see in this video, I think before this actually, because I've read the books out of order. So when I'm filming these clips, I've already pre-filmed like the introductions, and so I've read them out of order. But yeah, I read Serenade of Kings, and that started to put me in a bit of a slump. Postscript from my last video as well put me in a bit of a slump. I didn't want to listen to a book, I didn't want to read a book, and I was forcing myself through it. And I think this book was kind of enemy to that, and therefore I gave it 4 stars. I do think it's a really good book, and I think it has the chance to go up to a 5-star. Maybe if I reread it or continue thinking about it, I might bump it up to 5 stars. But for now, 4 stars. Really enjoyed it. I love Elsie Silver's small town romance. I love kind of the smutty vibe, and I found books 1 and 2 quite heavy on the smut, and I found that I didn't really enjoy that as much. I thought that was quite a lot to kind of be dealing with, and especially the way Elsie Silver writes smut. I don't like some of the words she uses, like they make me cringe. So that being said, I really struggled with some scenes from the first couple of books. However, this 3rd book, I found the smut to be part of the plot. Like, it was more of a slow build, it had more of that tension build up, and you could see them getting closer, and then each time like edging away because they're worried about ruining that friendship kind of vibe, and just I loved it. I ate it up. And so when the smut happened, it was needed for the plot, it was needed for the character like development, and to see them getting closer and that kind of romantic interaction happen. However, sometimes it's just put in there and it's not needed, or like, because you get, it's a dual POV, you get both male and female points of view. Sometimes one point of view can be rather sexual, and I just don't like that. So yeah, really enjoyed it. 4 stars, would recommend. I'm really excited to carry on with the books in the series. I started this series at the start of like last year, and I don't know why I put it down, so I need to actually make sure I read books 4 and 5 of this series and get this series done, because it's an easy series to read. I can listen to the audiobooks, and yeah, I've just really enjoyed it. It's, like I say, it's easy, kind of palette cleanser, fun, simple romance, and I just loved it. But yeah, sometimes the smut can be a bit too much. It's not the smut's too much, because I enjoy like the tension and like the smut in books. I just, some words that writers use, I just can't stand. I cannot stand it, and that's what it is. If I don't like the words, it cringes me out, and I'm like, no, I'm out. But yeah, really enjoyed it, and would recommend. Yeah, it's just a great book, easy book. Yay, we ended the video. I'm really sorry, some of these clips are really like jumbled up, and I mean, a lot of the clips I'm wearing the same outfits for multiple clips, because I genuinely have been so busy the last few weeks where I've been reading this, and so I've had to like catch up on clips here and there. However, I've read all 3 books. I'm here to give you a wrap up. So I'm not sure what order I've done this in, so I filmed all my clips and I now need to edit it. So for me, book 1 that I read was Postscript, and that was 4 stars. Would recommend, very good, cute sequel to book 1. You have to read book 1 before you read book 2. It's not interconnected standalone, they are very much connected. That is a series finished for me, so amazing. I will update my series tracker. Book 2 was Powerless, or for me it was, and that was 4 stars. That's the 3rd book in the interconnected standalone Chestnut Spring series, so I've only got 2 more books of that series to read. Again, would recommend, you can read them in any order. However, I would personally recommend reading them in the correct order, because you get to see quite a lot of the couples as the books go on. So the book from the first book featured quite heavily in the second book, and then books 1 and 2 feature quite heavily in book 3. So it's not essential to read the books, and they're romance books, so you can kind of guess like they're going to end up together by the end of it. However, I do find it's really nice that you kind of see the family build and build, because it's about the group of brothers kind of finding love and romance. So I find that if you read them in order, you see the romance of each of the brothers kind of develop across the book, and then hopefully by book 5 we'll have like a really nice found family. So yeah, 4 stars, would recommend. If you've not read the Chestnut Spring series, I don't know where you've been, because I feel like I am the last person to read them, because I know so many people, most booktubers I've watched have read them, most of my book friends in real life have read them, so I'm like the last person there to get on that bandwagon. And the last book that I finished was Serenade of Kings, which again, 4 stars. I feel like for me, the reading experience was written because I don't like fantasy, and these books are really showing it to me. I think I'm more of a romantasy girl. I have read Powerless this year, absolutely loved it, gave that one 5 stars, haven't stopped thinking about it. Same with Reckless, loved it, 5 stars, haven't stopped thinking about it. Yeah, I think straight fantasy, really struggle with it. However, it's something that I want to continue to read and like develop my taste in, but I think it's just going to have to be maybe ones that I don't read for vlogs, because the time constraint on this video, I have to film this video. So today's Friday, this video comes out on Sunday, so I had to get this book finished this week and get these clips filmed and uploaded ready to go. So yeah, I think having to force myself through it for the video, I really struggled with that. However, if I had it as a book that I was reading like alongside maybe books that I was reading for a video, and like could pick it up here and there, and when it was getting a bit too much, I could put it down. I will say it's a YA fantasy, which means it's really accessible to read. So when I say it's getting too much, I just mean in terms of for me and my reading style. Like I say, fantasy is not my normal reading. So for me, it becomes slightly too much, and I need to switch up to like a fluffy romance. So yeah, I think this video has been really successful. I have finished one completed series. I have got up to date of one series, so the Serenade of Kings is me up to date with the Galilean Quartet, and then Powerless I'm now in the middle of, so I've only got 2 books left to read for that one. So yeah, really successful video, all 4 stars, which is amazing reads, and yeah, I've just really enjoyed my time. I do think I just need to like enjoy the next few weeks of no pressure of reading and kind of mood reading and enjoying that and getting new books. And so yeah, there is another video coming out before the end of the year, which is my January TBR. However, that video has been pre-filmed because my TBR car is back in Liverpool and I'm not there. So I've pre-filmed that one. However, I do have a few good ideas for the new year. I'm hoping to do like a bookish type vlog, which will include like a haul and my 25 books in 2025. And then some more reading vlogs and showing you the bits and pieces that I got for Christmas. So yeah, I want to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. As like I said, my January TBR is pre-filmed. So for me, this is my last video, or my last filming for the year. So I hope you all have a wonderful new year and like a really lovely Christmas season. I hope everyone gets some rest and just can recover a little bit. And if you're not able to rest because you're working, thank you so much for everything you do, because I'm sure if you're working over Christmas, you're either working in retail or hospitality or in the emergency services, and all 3 of those, hopefully not the emergency services, but I will be utilising retail and hospitality, and I have done both those jobs and I've worked Christmas in both those jobs and I know how stressful it is. So thank you to anyone who is doing those jobs. You guys are all amazing. But yeah, have a lovely Christmas and a wonderful new year, and I will, in my present day, see you in 2025. But don't forget to check out the January TBR that's coming out next Sunday. But yeah, have a lovely Christmas, guys, and I will see you soon. Make sure you like the video, comment down below any book you want to see me read in 2025, and subscribe to the channel. See you later.